Welcome to Built, Wired, and Secured. I'm Alex Morgan. In today's episode, we're discussing shared spaces, shared risks, managing tenant equipment and guest networks in multi-tenant buildings, what it is, why it matters, and what decision makers need to know to avoid costly mistakes. Joining me today is Michael Harrington as we break down real-world lessons, common challenges, and practical takeaways you can apply immediately. Let's dive in. Picture this. A tenant plugs in a new router in their suite. That device backfeeds a shared switch, the lobby kiosk loses connectivity, and the building intercom goes silent during a visitor arrival. Tenants are frustrated, lobby staff are fielding complaints, and the operations team is scrambling to find who owns which cable. That single moment captures the stakes of unmanaged tenant tech.
In the next 10 minutes, we'll cover 3 practical things: where ownership gaps usually appear, the trade-offs between tenant autonomy and building resilience, and a short onboarding checklist you can adopt tomorrow to reduce outages and finger-pointing.
First, some context. Buildings now behave like platforms. Tenants expect to bring their own routers, run cloud-connected services, and offer guest Wi-Fi. Those devices often sit near or on shared infrastructure, riser rooms, patch panels, or wireless ceilings, and that proximity means tenant gear can affect building systems.
From an operational standpoint, what I see is a lot of informal handoffs. Tenants assume they can plug in wherever. Vendors assume the tenant has authority. Facilities assume the tenant will manage their own devices. That gap is where outages and disputes start. Tenants want convenience, but convenience can create a single point of failure.
Let's unpack causes. Michael, tell us how ownership gaps, ad hoc cabling, and rogue wireless deployments actually create outages or security exposure.
The most common cause is blurred boundaries. A tenant brings a router into a demised space and runs a patch to a common riser outlet. That physical cable bypasses documented handover points and can misroute VLANs or IP scopes. Next, you get interference, uncoordinated Wi-Fi channels fighting a building's management network. And finally, there's maintenance blind spots, tenant gear tucked into a closet that nobody has access to during an outage.
So the causes are both physical and logical. Cables in the wrong place, unmanaged wireless, and assumptions about who will respond when something breaks. How do you recommend balancing tenant autonomy with operational simplicity and resilience?
You have 3 levers to balance: rules, access, and incentives. Rules define where tenant gear can connect and what separation is required. Access determines whether facilities or vetted vendors can physically or logically interact with tenant devices during incidents. Incentives, think simple service level expectations or onboarding fees, encourage tenants to follow the rules. The trick is keep rules straightforward and enforceable. The more complex your policy, the less likely it'll be followed.
Give me an example of a simple rule set that works in practice.
Start with 3 rules. 1. Require tenant devices to terminate in the tenant demised space and use the building's demarcation points for any cross-network connections. 2. Require logical separation, separate VLANs, and no direct bridging to building management networks. 3. Document and register every piece of tenant equipment in a building inventory with contact and maintenance info. That simple set prevents most accidental cross-connections and speeds troubleshooting.
Let's move to implications and real examples. Michael, can you share a case where tenant equipment caused an operational challenge and how the team fixed it?
Sure. We had a tenant install a managed router that was doing NAT and DHCP across a patched link into a common service VLAN. During a software update, the router rebooted and took the VLAN down for a cluster of building services. Elevator monitoring and the lobby kiosk were both offline. It took time to trace the path because the cable was labeled incorrectly. Fixing it required 3 actions: isolating the tenant link at the demarc, re-establishing IP scopes for critical systems, and updating our move-in checklist so every tenant device was logged and tested during commissioning.
That story highlights 2 recurring needs: a reliable handoff point and an onboarding process that catches these issues early. How does capital planning fit into preventing these problems?
From a capital planning lens, you need to budget for resilient demarcation infrastructure, labeled racks, clear riser distribution, and lockable closets. Invest in basic network segmentation at the building layer so tenant mistakes can't cascade. Those investments are relatively modest compared to the cost of outage investigations and lost tenant goodwill. Also plan for onboarding resources. A small one-time tech review for new tenants pays off quickly.
Before we wrap, let's give listeners a compact set of takeaways and a short onboarding checklist they can use right away.
Key takeaways. 1. Establish and publish a simple ownership matrix that states who owns cabling, who owns rack space, and who maintains devices. 2. Require physical and logical separation, demarcation points only, no ad hoc bridging into building control VLANs. 3. Document and register tenant equipment with contact and escalation info. And 4. Include a short onboarding test. Verify cable labeling, check IP scope separation, and confirm power and rack access during move-in.
Great checklist. For listeners who want that one-page tenant tech onboarding checklist, visit GDS Technology to download a ready-to-use version you can adapt for your building. It includes sample language for tenant agreements, a simple inventory template, and a short validation script for commissioning tenant devices. That wraps up this episode of Built, Wired, and Secured. Today we explored how tenant-owned equipment and guest networks create shared risk, why clear roles and a short onboarding process matter, and practical roles that reduce outages and disputes. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Until next time, make sure the systems you're responsible for are built to last, wired with intention, and secured for the real world.